This is the story of how one insecure man weaponized emotion, rebranded rage into religion, and almost turned Europe into a pit of diarrhea nastier than his own mind. Spoiler, it ends exactly how every egomaniac's story does, with delusion, paranoia, and a bunker that reeked of cigarettes and regret. So buckle up, we're diving into how one man's daddy issues spiraled into World War II. Born in 1889 in Braunau am Inn, Austria. Because of course the story starts in a small European town that no one can pronounce. Hitler's father, Alois, was a putz. He was a customs officer, strict, humorless, and extremely allergic to affection. His mother, Clara, was the only person who ever loved him, which is honestly one of the most tragic foreshadowings in modern history. Ah, yes, overbearing father, sensitive mother, childhood trauma, the holy trinity of future dictators. Psychology textbooks should have just used his face on the cover. Young Adolf dreamed of being an artist. He applied twice to the Academy of Fine Arts Vienna, twice rejected. Apparently, his landscapes lacked human emotion. That part, ironically, he perfected later. He spent his early 20s in Vienna, poor, homeless, and angry at the world. That's when the ideology began fermenting. Nationalism, racism, paranoia. He pretty much had the worst Reddit threads just playing on repeat in his mind all day. He read obsessively. German mythology, nationalist propaganda, conspiracy theories blaming Jews for everything from the economy to the weather. Always impressive how people can fail at life, then decide it's everyone else's fault. A true masterclass in projection. By the time World War I broke out, Hitler finally found purpose. Not in art, but in war. He enlisted in the Bavarian army. For the first time, he belonged somewhere. Structure, uniform, nationalism. It was all the validation he'd been starved for. He was a decent soldier, brave, disciplined, probably terrifying to have as a roommate. He was wounded twice, and even awarded the Iron Cross. But when Germany lost the war in 1918, his fragile little ego shattered. He went from proud soldier of the fatherland to an unemployed lunatic in a country full of people desperate enough to listen. And that's where his story really begins. Not as an artist, not as a soldier, but as a man who decided that if he couldn't paint the world he wanted, he'd just burn the one he had. I guess that's one way to process rejection. I preferred inventing modern physics. Less collateral damage. After the war, Germany was literal chaos. The economy collapsed, the monarchy was gone, and inflation was so bad people used money as wallpaper. Imagine your paycheck losing value before you could even cash it. Germany went from empire to karaoke night for lunatics, and Hitler stayed on that mic. He joined a small, angry political group called the German Workers' Party. Within months, he was their loudest voice. Within years, he was their god. He renamed it the National Socialist German Workers' Party. You know it better as the Nazi Party. His gift wasn't politics, it was performance. He had this eerie ability to make rage sound like purpose. Every rally was theater. Flags, lights, chants. It wasn't governance, it was a cult on a concert tour. He basically invented influencer marketing, just with more genocide. By 1923, he was so full of himself, he tried to overthrow the government. Literally. The beer hall putsch. A coup attempt that started in a bar. It failed miserably, of course. 12 dead, Hitler arrested. Pro tip, if your revolution begins with beer, it's probably not going to end in victory. In prison, he wrote Mein Kampf, a rambling mix of autobiography, conspiracy theory, and fan fiction about racial purity. He dictated it to his sycophant while lounging in relative comfort. The book sold poorly at first, But when the Great Depression hit, his paranoia suddenly sounded practical. Germany was desperate, starving, humiliated, and Hitler gave them what they craved: someone to blame, something to believe in, and a promise that pain could be avenged. By 1933, he wasn't shouting from beer halls anymore. He was chancellor. Legally. Democratically. See, this is why I never trusted democracy. Give people a choice, and they'll always choose the loudest idiot. Within months, he outlawed other parties, burned books, jailed opponents, and turned the entire nation into an echo chamber. Propaganda Minister Joseph Goebbels took control of media, art, and speech. The result? A country where disagreement was treason and fear was patriotism. And Hitler, he finally had his masterpiece. Not on canvas, but in control. He couldn't properly paint a tree, but he painted a nation red, black, and white. And humanity never forgot the disgusting image.
Hitler's psychology was simple.
Insecurity disguised as destiny. Every speech, every gesture, it was theater for a man who couldn't control his own reflection. He believed the world was divided into predators and prey. Strong races deserved to rule, weak ones deserved to vanish. It wasn't logic, it was projection. The man failed art school twice and decided evolution itself was broken. Most people channel insecurity into gym memberships. He chose genocide. Different coping mechanisms, same core issue. His ideology was fueled by two obsessions: purity and control. He saw chaos as an infection and himself as the cure. That's the dangerous thing about conviction. Once you think you're saving humanity, you'll justify destroying it. He surrounded himself with yes-men, men who mistook cruelty for strength. The inner circle wasn't brilliance, it was brain-dead obedience. Every mad idea was echoed until it became law. That's how you get death camps out of board meetings. And Hitler himself, he lived like a monk on the surface. Vegetarian, no alcohol, no smoking. But under that discipline was mania. Paranoia, insomnia, rage. He paced, ranted, micromanaged invasions down to troop positions. His generals hated it. His doctors drugged him just to keep him functional. God forbid you eat a steak, but meth is fine. He preached purity while injecting methamphetamine. Hypocrisy so pure it could have been bottled. But you have to understand the psychological genius and horror of it all. He didn't just lead Germany. He embodied its wounds. He took a nation's humiliation and turned it into religion. He weaponized emotion better than any propagandist in history. Every fear became fuel. Every doubt became doctrine. He didn't command obedience through reason. He hypnotized it through meaning. That's the thing about charisma. It's not intelligence. It's infection. And he was airborne. Even his supposed vision of the Aryan utopia, pure, strong, united, was just his fantasy of control. A world scrubbed clean of everything that reminded him of his own weakness. And millions followed. Not because they were all monsters, but because he told them they weren't. Tell people with daddy issues that they're special, and they'll burn the world to prove it. Hitler's power wasn't just politics, it was psychological architecture. Fear, pride, belonging, hate, engineered into one machine. And for a few terrifying years, it worked flawlessly. By the early 1940s, Hitler had everything he wanted: absolute power, a brainwashed nation, and a war he was sure he'd already won, which, historically speaking, is the exact moment when hubris clocks in for work. He blitzed through Europe like a man speedrunning conquest. Poland, France, the Netherlands, Norway, all fell in record time. For a moment, he looked unstoppable. Turns out, if you attack unprepared neighbors with a massive army, you win. Really stunning insight. But then came his biggest mistake: invading the Soviet Union. Because if there's one rule of world domination, it's this: never invade Russia in the winter. Honestly, just maybe never invade Russia in general. Napoleon tried it, Hitler tried it. Both ended up regretting geography. The Eastern Front bled Germany dry. The Allies closed in. His dream empire began collapsing under the weight of its own arrogance. By 1944, even his own generals were plotting against him. There were assassination attempts. One almost worked. But Hitler survived, increasingly paranoid, pale and trembling from drug cocktails that could tranquilize an elephant. He retreated to a bunker in Berlin. Delusional, isolated, dictating troop movements for armies that no longer existed. Outside, the city burned. Inside, he gave speeches to crappy pictures he drew on the wall. Imagine losing a world war and still micromanaging imaginary divisions. The man could have run a spectacular crypto Ponzi scheme.
April 1945. The Soviet army surrounded Berlin. Hitler married his mistress, Eva Braun, and within hours both swallowed cyanide. He shot himself for good measure. A dictator's farewell. No accountability. No reflection. Just a final temper tantrum disguised as martyrdom for this giant, overgrown toddler. After all that noise, he ended his life in a basement. Fitting. That's where most of his ideas belonged. But his legacy, that's the haunting part. The war killed over 70 million people. The Holocaust exterminated 6 million Jews, along with millions of others. Roma, disabled, dissidents, anyone who didn't fit his delusional blueprint of purity. It wasn't just the destruction of cities. It was the corrosion of conscience. Humanity saw what it was capable of and couldn't look away. He wanted to build a 1,000-year Reich. It lasted 12. But the trauma, that's still here. Today, his name is shorthand for evil. A permanent warning label on human ambition without empathy. And that's the real paradox. He lost the world, but still defined it. In the end, Hitler didn't conquer the world. He just convinced it to stop thinking for 12 years. Really, I don't know how anyone allowed him to speak with that raunchy mustache in the first place. He proved that intelligence without morality is just strategy for evil. That charisma without conscience is just hypnosis. And that the most dangerous men in history aren't the ones who hate humanity. They're the ones who think they're saving it. And yes, you could say he changed the world, but only by showing us exactly what not to become. Humanity's most expensive lesson plan. He left behind ruins, ashes, and an equation I wish I didn't have to verify. Hate times power equals apocalypse. I ran the numbers. They check out. Imagine losing 2 world wars and still thinking you're the master race. Adorable.